Raj. Well, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Gopanananda. Can some strong person take the harmonium? Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane. There's a clip that was in here. It must have fell out. Namaste Saraswati Devi. Look on the floor there, maybe. Nirvisesha Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. You know, sometimes some little thing, although it's a little insignificant thing, it becomes very important and difficult to replace and expensive, and we just, something got disappeared. It's a little mic clip, but it's a clip for this particular mic, which is not like an ordinary mic clip. That was in the case. It got taken out and disappeared when it got put back. Anyway, give me a moment. You want Sherlock Holmes. Okay. You all know Sherlock Holmes? Still, today? He's famous? Do you know Sherlock? That's amazing. I guess Sherlock Holmes is a synonym for investigation. Okay, I'm just getting set up here, so give me a moment. I want to give an example that will illustrate a problem we have. Let's say my favorite food growing up was cinnamon bread. It was white bread with butter, oceans of cinnamon, and more oceans of sugar. And I could just eat that until I passed out, which basically is what I did. I just, you're young, you can eat a lot. So I just eat cinnamon toast, right? So, white flour is basically, if you mix white flour and water, it makes glue, if you know that. But if you ever run out of glue, just get some white flour, mix it with water, it'll glue things. It's not really healthy because it's refined, so they refine out everything, like the wheat germ and the fiber and whatever. They take out everything's good, but it tastes good, right? White bread tastes good, white puris. So later on in life, I came to learn that white bread isn't healthy. It's better to eat wheat. Later on, I learned that even wheat is not healthy because the wheat is genetically modified. But we won't go that far yet. For the sake of this example, I learned that wheat was healthy. Well, real wheat is healthy if you're not allergic to it. So, can you take off the delay or reverb? Oh yeah, there's our sun there. It's got the Krishna better now, yeah. So let's say we all went to a health seminar and we learned white flour's not good, sugar's not good, butter's not good, oil's not good, chilies are not good, turmeric's not good. I'm thinking all the things you like. Potatoes are not good. Rice is not good. You know, and so, of course, you might commit suicide afterwards, but considering you didn't commit suicide, so you have this knowledge in your head, and the speaker was expert. And the speaker totally convinced you, like beyond a shadow of a doubt. He explained exactly what these substances do to your body and why they're bad for you. And so it's completely clear, so you never want to touch those substances again. So you have it in your head. It's very clear, right? There's a problem, as you can imagine, because we know. I like those things. So I have this in my head, but what's in my heart? You know, I've been eating these things my whole life. So I'm habituated to this diet. I love potatoes, I love chilies, I love everything cooked in lots of oil, or whatever it is you like. For me, it's cinnamon and bread. So this is the predicament of the mind, and this explains why when we understand something is wrong, we're still attracted to it, because we always have this problem. It drives us crazy. I go to a class, I understand something is wrong, and I'm still attracted, and I'm still thinking, I want this, it's going to make me happy. Like, why? Because for so many years, it was what we became habituated to think as happiness, or even what we experienced as happiness, so-called, or some degree of happiness. So the mind's thinking, oh, that's what makes you happy, right? So the mind, it gravitates towards something, even though in the beginning, the intelligence is saying, no, it's bad, because we're habituated the other way. And this is something very important in learning to control the mind, because it's frustrating, isn't it? You know, you think, oh, I've gone to Bhagavad Gita class, I've learned this verse, I even talk about it, I understand it, and then I catch myself acting in the opposite way, or at least I catch my mind telling me to do the opposite. That's very frustrating. And why? And how to deal with it. So in order to know how to deal with it, we have to understand why. So we understand why it's been cultivated. It's a conditioning. This is just the way I think. For example, if you're a normal, conditioned soul in a materialistic culture, then you'll naturally think, if I get more money, I'll be happier. If I get a bigger position, I'll be happier. If I can make myself attractive to the opposite sex, I'll be happier. If I can impress people with however I decide to impress them, I'll be happier. If I live in a bigger house, I'll be happier, etc., etc. Then you come to Krishna consciousness and you realize that's all false. But then you catch yourself thinking, oh, I could do this and make more money. Then I'll be happy. And you go, wait a minute, I know that's not true. And I've done it before, and I got more money, and it was nice. I could buy a more comfortable this, or new this or that. But it didn't really make me much happier, and I know that. It just made me more comfortable, basically. Or gave me a lot of temporary excitement. And I know that. But it's so conditioned in there. For my whole upbringing, my parents were telling me, society was telling me, professors, everybody was telling me, I was seeing people around me with big smiles, and they had more money than I had, and they had more success, so it looked like that's how you get happiness. And then you study. Even the most frustrating thing is, you experience much greater happiness in spiritual life. And still the mind is saying, oh, look at that, you should do that. Isn't it? Isn't that crazy? So now we understand why. It's a habit. It's been habit. Well, how do you develop a habit? You develop a habit by doing something over and over and over again. And if you do something over and over and over again, or see it over and over again, it makes impressions. But sometimes we call this subconscious programming. But subconscious programming in Sanskrit, we call it samskara, impression. It's basically just a habit which is impregnated by repeated action or impregnated by social values. Everybody's doing it, everyone says it's true. Or impregnated by experience. Like, I don't like this or I like this. Patanjali says you like something because you had a good experience with it and you become attached to it. So I had good experiences with this. I played football when I was young, so now whenever there's a football match on television, the big soccer, what do you call it, football, or cricket. Cricket's even bigger. I grew up with cricket, I played cricket, I watched it. So now I've been socially indoctrinated. And not socially indoctrinated, but I enjoyed it when I was young, so I look back at it and I think there's pleasure, and so there's an attachment. Even though I know, if I don't watch the cricket game, I'll still exist and I'll just be fine. And my wife's thinking, why do you want to watch this stupid game? Just a bunch of guys knocking a ball around, It's just like, don't you have anything better to do? No, you don't understand, You'll never understand, So Patanjali says, well, if you've done anything that's given you pleasure, it creates an attachment. If you've done anything that's caused you distress, it creates detachment. Of course, it can create post-traumatic stress disorder and all kinds of psychological diseases. But he wasn't dealing with that. He was just saying, it'll detach you, because if you think of it and think, no, last time I did that, I had a really bad experience. The time before was a bad experience. I did it 5 years earlier, bad experience. And so your husband says, do you want to do this? You're like, no. I think that was going to his mother's house, that bad experience. You want to go to my mother's house? No! Bad experience every time I go. I have nightmares about it. So we're joking, but there's a little truth. For some people, it's actually true for some people, they can't even go to their mother-in-law's house. They had such bad experiences. So that's how it works. And you also have beliefs, which beliefs you pick up socially conditioned, or you pick up by experience, that if I do this, this happens, and if I don't do this, that happens. Anyway, that explains why when we understand something, the mind is still going after something else, which is completely frustrating to us. So that's where we begin in understanding mind control. So understanding this, at least you can detach a little bit, because you can look at it and understand what it is and say, oh, this is not what I want, but this is what I used to want. This is what I became habituated to want. This is what the mind has been conditioned to tell me. No, you want this. It's like if you could talk to your mind, and we could do a little play, talk to your mind. And your mind says, you're telling your mind, I don't want this. Then the mind says, wait a minute, for the last 25 years you've been telling me, white bread, sugar, butter, and cinnamon. And now you're telling me you don't want it? Like, you trained me up, to make you salivate when you saw these things, and now you're telling me you don't want it? And so the mind's conditioned say, I can't just change like that. That's like asking me too much. I'm supposed to direct you to what you trained me that you want. So that's what's actually happening. The mind is just responding to the training. Sometimes you think a certain way, and you find that way you're thinking is getting in the way of what you want to achieve, and you can't understand, why am I thinking in a way that's contradictory to what I want? And it's because the mind has been conditioned that way. That's how you trained it. So that's what it's doing. Right? So if we understand that, then when the mind is doing those things, we can say, oh, now I understand why my mind's doing this. And I have to separate my willpower, my intention, my desire from the mind whenever the two are different. Now here's the problem, and you know the problem, but I'm going to philosophize the problem for you. The problem is the mind takes over, you know that, but I have to explain why. You want to know why? Because you would think logically it wouldn't take over because now you're on a new path, so the mind would just say, okay, new path, reprogrammed, tell me what you want. And that would be simple. Right? Life would be really simple if you could just tell the mind, okay, this is what I want, just facilitate it. No more cinnamon, no more butter. Now it's wheat with ghee or wheat with, vegan butter or something. Of all those four things, cinnamon is healthy. So we keep the cinnamon. But then I use maple syrup now, not sugar. Maple syrup's healthy if you don't eat too much. It's got actually a lot of nutrition. So, okay, mind, this is the new conditioning. It would just be easy if the mind said, okay, but it doesn't. Because it's all programmed now in the subconscious. And so it has to. So, in the reprogramming process, it's very important we understand what's going on and why the mind has so much power. Now, you've all heard the word false ego. So false ego means falsely identifying with something that is not us. Like, I think I'm the body. I'm American, like he said. I'm from Los Angeles. I was born in 1950, which for some of you is like prehistoric, like another yuga or something. But if you're born in 1950, when you became 19, Prabhupada was already in the country starting the movement, so that was a good time to be born. You became of age when the hippie movement started, so you were like ready. So I think I am an American male, 69 years old, Jewish, from Los Angeles, California, and then there are other I ams. So when you say I am and then fill in the blank. I am a teacher. I am a guitar player. I am a programmer. I am a husband. I'm a wife. I'm a father. All the after I am is a false identity. Because when we die, all the identities go with it. And the only thing that remains is I as the soul. So all those other identities are false. Because in Sanskrit, false means temporary. Anything temporary is false. Anything eternal is real. Sat. Sat means truth. Sat means reality, and Sat also means eternal. So if it's not, sometimes we say, get real. Someone's being phony. You say, get real, but you could say, get Sat. Get eternal, because eternity is real. We say, you have to be real. Okay, we understand what we're talking about. Be vulnerable, be honest, be a person of integrity, be real, don't pretend. But in the ultimate transcendental sense, get real means get Sat. Become eternal, because that's what's real. So everything else is false. So I think I'm a body, and that's called false ego. But I also think I'm the mind, and that's part of the whole structure, the physical structure. Well, the subtle physical structure is the mind. So if you think you're the body, most likely you're going to think you're the mind. And so what does it mean to think you're the mind? It means to identify those thoughts as yours. So you can't separate you from the thought. So I am hungry, right? You ever been really hungry? Like really, really hungry, right? And the thought that I am hungry is total reality to you. Yeah. Are you hungry? Yes, I'm really hungry. Is there anything else in existence? No. Only food and my stomach and tongue. That's all that exists. Isn't it? You can't think beyond that. Yes? You're like that every day? So, for us, the thought I am hungry is reality. Isn't it? Now, here's where it gets dangerous and expensive. You walk into Best Buy to buy Like we needed last night, a little, you put in the iPhone, and then you can plug in a 1/4 inch, a little mini plug-in. So he goes in, they're like $12 or something. And he goes in to get this little plug, so you can plug in any headphone set instead of the iPhone proprietary. And he sees the new iPhone 11. What do you have now? iPhone what? 10. He's got a 10. You are so 2018. You are such a loser. So his mind is telling him, you are so 2018. You are such a loser. And look you have a good job. It's no big deal for you to buy an iPhone 11. Plus iPhone 11, it's got these special apps which, enable you to know what everybody's thinking and fly through the sky and all these, wonderful things that it has. And plus the screen has, more pixels and the sound, it's like. And he just came in to buy a $12 little, right? Now what's the problem? And let's say he's like Mr. Techno incarnate. So any new technology is like his weakness, even if he doesn't need it. I'm not saying it, we're just using an example, but let's say that were true. That Divyanam is he's fascinated by technology, and any upgrade in technology, he sells his computer every year, sells his phone, So this is his weakness. And so all these things are going through his mind. And then the ultimate thing that goes through the mind, which gets you to buy it, is to try to figure out reasons that you need it, even though you absolutely do not need it. So the mind will say, well, actually, if you had this new app, you could actually save 3 seconds on this project you work every day. And the 3 seconds a day multiplied by 365, that comes out to 18 minutes. And no. And I could utilize that 18 minutes at work for another project, and your mind is just going zzz, trying to convince you need it. What is the problem? The problem is we identify with the body, we identify with the mind just like we identify with the body. So when those thoughts come, we think those are our thoughts. And those thoughts are essentially what we're supposed to do. Why would you think of doing something which isn't in your self-interest? Because those are your thoughts. So the false ego says, these are your thoughts. This is what you're supposed to do. So there's no, should I do it? Shouldn't I? It's just at a certain point, there's an amalgamation, and it's just go, I'll take the pink one, and then, you buy it. And you come home and you go, yeah, I really need this, Your mind is telling you how much you need it, and I can sell my other one. You traded it in. It's only $25 a month. It's no big thing. I'll just eat one less chapati a day and we'll save $25 or whatever, So the problem is you didn't need the phone, and you couldn't detach enough to realize that was just a conditioned thought, because I'm a technomaniac. As a technomaniac, I know these thoughts are going to be there. If I had learned to control my mind, I could detach. So when the thoughts came, I would just say, thank you, mind, I'm really not interested. And you would just buy your $12 adapter and you'd walk out. Because you've disassociated, right? Now, psychologists know this. Marketing gurus know this. So everything that's most important in a grocery store, like milk and bread, it's not in the front, it's in the back. Why? Because you go through the store and you look at everything, right? And you get attached. Oh, look at that. Look at those. Chips with chili. Oh my God. I've never seen those before. And turmeric. And potatoes. Special potatoes. Just like we eat in India. Oh my God. Off the shelf. And you had no intention of getting it. So, because we can't detach our thoughts from who we are, we think all our thoughts are us, because that's what false ego does. Does that make sense? If I think I'm the body, why not think I'm the thoughts? It's the same equation, right? So the thought says, do this, buy this, you like this, go get this, go get that, and you're thinking, what's going on here? These are all these things are against my values. Why is my mind telling me? And then all of a sudden, I got a big shopping cart full of things, and I'm trying to figure out. I get home and I look at it and go, how did that happen? Because I believe when my mind says this will make you happy, that it's me speaking. That's the problem. And so it's the false ego identified with the thought. The thought's not us. So in learning to control the mind, it has to start there, where you can look at the thought and be able to analyze, okay, do I want this thought? Is this a thought I've created that's useful or not? And most people can't do that 24/7. They can do it a little bit, but not always. Depends on the person. Now, let's take it to another level, where it's even more difficult. Emotions. Emotions are the subtle aspects of thinking. When a thought is a feeling, it's called an emotion. And psychologists tell us, I don't know if this is true, but maybe we have psychologists here, you can tell us more. Psychologists tell us you feel everything before you think it. Maybe I don't know what is true because I'm not always in touch with my feeling. But you go into, like you walk into this room, and before you thought anything, you felt, oh, who's here, and what color it is. There was a feeling, right? Didn't you get a feeling when you walked in here? This is nice, this is not nice, this carpet is beautiful, this carpet is ugly, whatever you felt, right? So now we go into a situation, this is more difficult. We just go into a situation, and by nature, we feel something. We don't even think about it, you just feel it, isn't it? You look at someone and go, I don't like you. Where did the I don't like you come? First it was a feeling. I just, So how do we control emotions? More difficult, right? But it's the same principle. You have to detach. I'm not the emotion. I'm soul, and I'm experiencing emotion. I'm not that emotion. For example, have you ever said, I am angry? Well, let me ask a question the other way. Have you ever not said, I am angry? Or, I am upset, or I am some blank emotion, I'm afraid, I'm fearful. It's not true. You're feeling angry, you're feeling fearful, you're feeling upset. You are not anger. Anger is an emotion which you, the soul, are experiencing, right? Otherwise, how would you even know what it is unless you experience it? So, we say, I'm angry at you. No, you feel anger. You are not anger, right? So, we also can change our language a little bit. So, I feel anger. So, let's say this is my anger. What do they say in court? Jinitai, specimen A, or what is it? What do you say in court?
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, yeah, that's all right. This is Exhibit A. This is my anger. So, this is my heart. The anger is in my heart, right? I'm holding on to it, right? Can I let it go? Yes. Of course, I have free will. God has given me free will. Calm down, it's okay, just let it go. You always tell your friends when they're angry, just let it go. Easy to tell somebody, right? When you're angry, not so easy. But for the sake of this example, let's use someone else. And they tell them, you calm them down. Then what do? They let it go by free will choice. Right? So by nature, we have free will. Krishna's given everyone free will. You can use it, you can misuse it, you can use it a little or a lot. But we all have the free will to take this anger or let's use another example, let's say fear or frustration, intolerance. We all have the free will to let it go. To get that emotion into our thinking and to understand this is bad or wrong and decide to let it go. Because we're not the emotion. If we were, it would be part of us and then we're stuck with it, right? And it feels like we're stuck with it, but we're not. Our perception is, no, I'm angry and this anger is me. It's not you. So, if we're going to make progress spiritually and even materially, we have to learn to detach from thoughts and emotions and then raise them to where we want them to be. What do I want to feel right now? Do I want to feel anger, or do I want to feel some other emotion? I want to feel calm, I want to feel empathy or understanding. We all know what a torture it is to be angry or envious or jealous. And it just kind of grabs onto us. And it's a very unpleasant experience. So nobody really wants it, right? But due to our conditioning and the association with the modes of nature, we experience these things. So detachment from thoughts, detachment from emotions. We need to learn to practice that and then upgrade the thoughts and the emotions to the emotions and thoughts we want. Wouldn't that be amazing if we could do that? Well, just think what your life would be like. There's a big motivational speaker, and he said, the ability to control your life is the ability to control your emotional state. Because if you're in the wrong emotional state, in a sense, you're dysfunctional. Like, let's say you have a job to do, and right now you're totally depressed, or you're totally fearful, or you're totally angry, or some other emotion that's encompassing your consciousness. You're pretty dysfunctional, isn't it? What if you could get out of that state? Right? What if you could alter that state so you're no longer depressed or angry? Wouldn't that be amazing? I think it'd even be more amazing if you could prevent yourself from getting in that state. And that's also possible as you elevate your consciousness, because you see things differently, so things won't upset you or make you afraid or so forth. That's for another class. That's like, this is controlling the mind 101. That's like 201. This is just like, what do you do from here? That next class is, how do you get to there so you don't have to do that anymore? That's even better. That's Krishna consciousness. That's what it's doing, or supposed to be doing, to get you to this point where you've reconstrued your whole reality so something bad happens, it doesn't affect you the way it did before, because you understand there's some divine arrangement, some karmic consequence, or you just see it in some way that you can let it go. But until you arrive at that happy day, then the first stage is being able to see a thought or an emotion and then recognize that right now, at this point, I don't have to listen to this thought or emotion. I don't have to. Because Krishna has given me free will. Now, I think a lot of us don't realize how powerful free will is. Because when you get overcome by emotion, or overcome by thought, you basically have lost your free will. That's the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance, pretty much your free will is like, it's hard to find it. You always have it, but it's hard to find it. So you're overcome by anger, that's the mode of ignorance, tamaguna. And so in when you get angry, how hard it is to, it's going to stop at some point. But at that point, it's because it's a tamasic emotion that we've allowed to take over ourselves, and our free will is very weak in tamagun. It's the strongest in sattvagun. So, the more you live a sattvic life, the more you try to have sattvic thoughts and sattvic emotions, the more free will you can manifest. The more independence you have, the more free choice you have to go into Best Buy and look at that iPhone 10 and go, 11, excuse me, and go, nah, don't need it, right? Even though your mind says, technomania on steroids, you have to have this, what are people going to think if you only have a 10? You'll lose your reputation as technopod incarnate. So the mind, and then you've learned how to detach and realize that's just my mind, it's not me. That's just my emotion. I'm falling in love with this phone, it's just my emotion, it's not me. I'm not saying this is easy, but it's what has to be done. You've probably heard about emotional intelligence came up as, I don't know the history of it, but a psychologist discovered that basically people have very immature emotional intelligence, and they have to cultivate it. They don't know how to handle their emotions. They get easily upset. Sometimes we act like kids. And so it was a process of kind of analyzing your emotional state so you could respond better in the future. So it's just an example of detaching from that emotional state, not acting on it, and making a decision how you want to act. Similarly, detaching from a thought, knowing that this thought is not helpful, what thought would be better, choosing a better thought, and then acting on that thought. So my point is that a lot of us don't realize we can actually do that because we're so conditioned to think in a certain way, we don't think there's any other way to think, right? Isn't it? And like we were talking before, materially conditioned to think money, success, or whatever. However you're conditioned, whatever your cup of tea is, I don't know. But sometimes it's so deeply rooted, we think that's the only way I can think. I don't know how to think another way. So we say things like, I can't think like this, or I can't be like this. Maybe in some cases it's true, due to your nature, your personality. But in most cases it's not true, because we're not dealing with fundamental conditioning. I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert. And even if I'm an introvert, I can act as an extrovert if I have to. It's not that I can only be an introvert. Do you know some of the biggest rock stars are introverts? Did you know that? And they get on stage and they go completely crazy. And you'd think, would never want to live with this guy, he's a madman. But you meet them, or you find out if you read their biographies, that actually they're very quiet and shy and insecure, and they get on stage and they're... So you may even have a nature, but in order to execute a task, you have the ability to act in a different way. If you're a salesperson and you're an introvert, you have to become extroverted just to get the job done. Hey, how's it going? My name's so-and-so. Glad to meet you. Wow. You never do that in your ordinary life. It's just like, yeah, my name's Mahatma. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yeah. But now I have to sell something. Yeah, my name's Mahatma. Yeah. So we can do that. And you're going to love this product. So I'm doing that, right? So I don't bore you. And I want to excite you. So it's important to understand how much control we actually have, because I think a lot of us believe we don't have much control. This is just how I am. Your wife says, can you change? And the husband says, no, it's just how I am. The husband says to the wife, can you be nicer? No, I can't. I'm sorry. It's just how I am. No, it's not true. You can change, you can be nicer, they can change to a certain degree. And so it has to, any kind of mind control has to have these elements, that I'm not the thoughts, I'm not the emotions. I can observe them, I can detach, and I don't have to act on them, and I can decide other emotions. Now, as I said, it's not easy, so it requires practice. But what I would suggest, whenever your mind does the crazy things it does, you just tell yourself, it's just my mind, so I don't have to pay attention to it. So Prabhupada taught us, he said, well, how do you deal with your mind? He said, don't pay attention to it if it's not helping you. Like, why would you? You go out with your kid, and your kid's saying something that's totally ridiculous. So what do? You don't pay attention to it. He's on his way to school and saying, can we go to the airport and go to Disneyland now? You would think, that's ridiculous. I'm driving you. No, I want to go to Disneyland, I don't want to go to school. No, it's a ridiculous idea. And so you naturally say, no, just be quiet. We're going to school, okay? We're going to school. That's, we can do that with the mind. Right? So the mind is saying something ridiculous, and you tell the mind, that's ridiculous. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It sounds easy, but it's not. Because those ideas, those thoughts are so deeply ingrained. Those desires are so deeply ingrained. Sometimes it's hard, but we need to recognize that. And otherwise, it can become very difficult to control and also very discouraging. It's like, why am I having these thoughts? I understand this is wrong. I've understood this for 50 years and I'm still having it. That's discouraging, but I understand, no. I've been trying to control this thought for 50 years, but I cultivated it for 50 million. So, the odds are against me. So I have to work on it, right? A lot of mantras, a lot of sadhana, a lot of practice. But it has to begin. That's why when Arjuna told Krishna, the mind's difficult to control, Krishna said, I know, but it's possible by practice. So this becomes your new practice. And so when you're thinking a certain way, which is not conducive to your material or spiritual welfare, you begin to develop the habit of you just ignore it. That's really the instruction of Shastra. If you haven't got to this place where all the good thoughts are coming and all the bad thoughts have been dissipated through your spiritual practice, stage 1, just ignore it. You don't have to, okay, you should buy this iPhone 11. No, I don't need it. Then I ignore the thought. It's over. It's finished. 3 seconds, it's gone. You are in control of your life. Now, what happens when you give attention to thoughts? The thought says, like the kid, I'm here. Don't bother me. No. The thought's going like that, right? So what happens when you give attention to it? And you go, well, what do you want? And then it gets bigger. This is what I want. And he's more intense. So the more energy, the more you say to your kid, okay, the more they get bigger and bigger. I want this, I want that. We have to do this. So thoughts are like that. You give them a little energy. Through attention, they get more powerful. So the problem, this is very important. So if you're sleeping, wake up. 1, 2, 3, wake up. This is important. I have to sometimes tell you what's important because I say a lot of things. But think about this. The thought is not the problem. Giving attention to the thought is the problem. So the little, and you're just shopping and ignoring him. I want the candy, I want the marshmallow, I want the ice cream. Sometimes the mother doesn't even say anything. Because it's like, why waste time telling him I'm not buying him ice cream? They'll just agitate him. Just don't say anything.
Not only to the kids.
What, to the wife? Hare Krishna. So sometimes you just have to neglect. And so we have many thoughts which are conditioned from our previous activities, right? So the problem, here's the point I wanted to make. 1, 2, 3, wake up. The problem is not the thought. The real problem is giving attention to the thought. Because as you're progressing in devotional service, you're going to still have those thoughts. It's going to, as you go through different levels, the thoughts will become purified, right? But until you're on those levels, you'll have the thoughts. So if you cannot give attention to them, then you're doing good. Because if you don't give attention, what happens to the thought? The same thing that happens to a guest that you don't feed. They leave. This is, I think, Chanakya or Bengali saying. There's 2 things you starve if you want to get rid of them. If you have a fever, starve it. And if you have a guest, starve them. If they've overstayed their welcome, just tell them, I'm sorry, we can't feed you. And then they'll go away. So it's the same with thoughts. If you give attention, you're feeding the thought. And then the thought gets more powerful and gets bigger and it has more influence. If you neglect the thought or starve the thought, it will go away. This is one of the teachings of Buddhism, because Buddhism is based on a kind of avoidist meditation of clearing the mind, So it's not that we want to be voidists, but we can learn something from their meditation. So what they say is, if a thought comes that you don't want, as easily as it comes, let it go. In the same, just like, okay, bye-bye. Thought comes, you need this. No, I don't. Bye-bye. Just let it go. Right? And so then you're not giving it attention. Once you give it attention, it grows and it takes over, and then it goes back to what we were talking about before. It becomes so powerful, you can't even distinguish the thought from yourself, and you think yourself is just telling you what to do. Right? This will make you happy, do it. So the last thing I want to talk about, what time are we supposed to end? 2 o'clock? So another thing that can help us significantly is what we talked a little bit about last night. If those of you who were there, we talked about reading Prabhupada's books and how Prabhupada's books gives us intelligence. And so one of the problems we see in modern society today is that the more materialistic we get, it seems the less we're acting with intelligence, and the more we're acting spontaneously, emotionally. So you say most Americans are in debt, like 8,000, or I don't know what the latest figure is, 20,000 or something. Emotional spending. You like it, you buy it, even though you don't have money. So intelligent spending would be, okay, do we need it? Can we afford it? Like that. So the intelligence is our savior, because the mind is just saying, looks good to me, let's get it. The intelligence is saying, hold on, let's talk about it. Like your father when you want to buy something. He goes, wait a minute, let's talk about it. You really need this. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay it back? All these questions. So the father is the intelligence, is supposed to be, or the mother, right? So we have that intelligence. But sometimes it's hard to hear because the desire to get something clouds the intelligence. So, number one, don't focus too much on the thought. Number two, allow the intelligence to analyze. Is this something I really want? Or why am I thinking of this? And then activate the intelligence. Intelligence is often activated with questions. Like why, or what's going on. And then naturally, those questions, they go to the intelligence, and then if your intelligence is not clogged up by the passion to have something, you'll get clarity. And if it is clogged, ask somebody else. Say, can you help me with this? Of course, that's not always easy because you may have already bought it or done it, right? But in understanding the function of the mind and the function of the intelligence, we see there's a distinction where the mind is just, if it feels good, or it sounds good, yeah, it looks good, makes me feel good, then I want it. And the intelligence is, hold on, let's talk about it. And let's analyze, okay, what it's going to cost, what are the ramifications if you do this, what are the consequences now, long run. The intelligence is able to see in the whole picture. The mind just sees, does this make me happy now? Does it feel good now? That's all the mind. That's the function of the mind. It just, does it feel good now? So when you go out today, you go outside and go, oh, the weather's nice. It's not, I like it, I don't like it. Maybe I should or shouldn't go for my walk today because it's cold out. Intelligence will say, no, you go. Whether it's just, if it's cold, just wear more. You have to do this every day. Because if you don't, doctor said you're going to get a stroke or a heart attack. Okay. So that's what the intelligence, the mind says, ooh, it's cold, I don't want to go out, or I don't feel good, or I ate too much. So we really need to rely on intelligence. But the beautiful thing is Prabhupada's books strengthens our intelligence, gives us that spiritual intelligence that gives us the power to see through. So why don't we take some questions? We have time? Or no? Yes.
Nice, wonderful. Thank you very much for this class. If we are such intelligent and we are able to analyze and process all this, where is this karma is playing into it? So if everyone is capable of doing this, a lot of times we say this is my destiny.
Yeah.
And we do see even most intelligent people do stupid things too. So how do we say that, okay, this is your past, is influencing your thought process. So how my condition in the past is influencing me today, not to make that call.
Yeah, it may. Well, let's start with this. Your present is also influencing your future.
Yes.
But your past may make it more difficult or easier, because you may be, let's say, more sattvic, more spiritual, more determined. Like some people, some people are extremely determined and some are not.
Yes.
So that's a karmic thing. So it just means that for some of us it's easier and some of us it's more difficult. So we have the same knowledge, but according to our nature, it's going to be a little more difficult for some, because by nature, karmically, they're lazy. That's like what happened. But Krishna consciousness being transcendental, we can say, if executed properly, would transcend those karmic influences. And what I prefer to say, and I'm glad you asked this question because I didn't mention this enough, what I would prefer to say is that free will is free will. You're the one who makes it. You're the one who decides. So even if my free will is weak, ultimately Krishna has given you the decision-making process that you can make it. So no matter how bad your past karma was, at any moment you can decide to be better and do something about it. And if we think, oh, it's my karma, I can't, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I always think it's better just whatever Krishna says to do, it's better just to make the effort to do that without considering my past karma, whether I can or can't, because then I can get into all kinds of psychological trouble. That's why I never get my astrology done, because then I think it's like, oh, yeah, what to speak if the astrologer, got your timing off a little, or he did someone else's astrology and told it was yours, Or you have some transcendental experience that's you're a person that transcends easily, so not everything affects you. And then you're expecting this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's better to put yourself in the optimal position to make something happen. And then, you may have karma, you may not. But let's say you want to make money. All you can do is make the best choices. Start a business, make the best choices. Maybe you don't have big money karma, but you have to do your best, right? You have to make the best choices. You possibly can have the best strategy, hire the best people, try to develop or purchase the best service or product. That's all you can do. And so what else? Then it's, let's see what happens. Do I win the jackpot or? And it's true. You can have brilliant business ideas, but you don't have Warren Buffett karma. So it's just, you could have better ideas than him, but you just don't have the karma. But you pursue those ideas. That's all you can do, as the best you can. But in terms of lack of willpower, lack of determination, the way Prabhupada never dealt with that, he never dealt with it in terms of what's your psychology, what's your samskar, what's your karma. It's just like this, you have this choice. So let me convince you why you should do this. And once I convince you, then you do it. That was Prabhupada's approach. This is why you should do it. Krishna says, this is the benefit. Be intelligent, take advantage of it. And if you don't, what can I do? I think that's how we have to see it. Keep telling yourself, I need to be intelligent. Now, just because I brought up the money thing, Prabhupada said something which I think is important for us. He said, making money is not important, becoming Krishna conscious is important. And many times Prabhupada said, karmically, you're going to get a certain amount of money. So if you just got fired yesterday, don't worry. You're probably going to get another job when you're supposed to get it and probably make around the same amount. Maybe you'll make more. Maybe you'll make less. But it's all like karmically ordained. You just try your best. But don't try so hard that you give up your spiritual life to make money, because you can't control it. It's within a certain paradigm. If your karma is to be middle class, you can try your level best to be upper class, But if it's not karmically ordained, you'll just be a little better. But you may be working 15 hours a day to be a little better, and that's not smart. Sometimes, I don't have Shastra for this, but this is just an intuitive sense that sometimes we're trying to like challenge our karma. Okay, my karma is I'll make 100,000 a year, but I make that at my job. But if I start a side business, maybe I'll make another 100,000, you know. And maybe you will, but maybe you shouldn't have, because now you're working 15 hours a day. And Prabhupada said we shouldn't work more than 8. And so I've compromised my life and my family and my health and my spiritual life so I can make this other 100,000. So I've kind of like cheated the system, because karmically I would only make 100,000, but karmically you're just supposed to work 8 hours a day, right? Or, you know, I'm supposed to die when I'm 82 and I'm on life support till I'm 83. You know, I'm challenging my karma. Without that life support, I would have died according to... So it's like, now I'm extending my life. You know, it's like they're creating new species. Shastra says there's a certain number of species. You have to change the number now. They created more. They've challenged nature. They've done something that they shouldn't have done. Isn't it? I hope I don't live long enough to see them, you know, cloning animals and humans and creating, you know, that's going to be really scary. Or just cloning a higher class of people that'll kick us all off the planet or something. So, you know, a natural life, and do your best, and whatever happens else is what happens. You can only do your best, right? That's my understanding. I was telling my wife one day, I said, I have books, I have classes, I have online courses. By the way, I have an online course on forgiveness, mahatmadas.com. Just go there and you'll see. We have 2 online courses on forgiveness, and there's no cost. We just ask donations, whatever you like to give. So I was telling my wife, you know, I have this book, I have this, you know, people promoting me, this and that. I say, you know, we're like one day away from being millionaires, also one day away from being paupers if nobody, you know, responds. You know, it's like you don't know. You're like one phone call away from an Oprah show, and then you sell, you know, 1 million books the next day, right? And you look at anyone who's famous, and they'll tell you, if I didn't get on this show or didn't get this opportunity, nobody would know about me. It wouldn't have happened. If I didn't make this one video that went viral, if I didn't meet this, I didn't write this one article that got picked up by the Washington Post that was read by the owner of Washington Post who invited me, you know, it wouldn't have happened, right? So all you do is try your best, and what happens, be happy with what happens. But always be your best. And never give in to this idea. It's not my nature to be self-controlled. It's not my nature to be determined. Yeah, but look at the consequence of not being self-controlled or determined. So Krishna will give you the power and intelligence to be self-controlled and determined, even if it's not your nature. Like I was saying the other night, you think it was our nature to get up at 4 o'clock and, you know, chant and then clean the temple and like that. We couldn't even make our beds, you know. I was getting up at 11 o'clock in the morning when before I became devoted. I was a student. I went to bed at 3 a.m. and I got up at 11 a.m. And I don't remember making my bed. I don't even remember cleaning my house. I'm sure I did, but I just can't remember. But I definitely remember cleaning the temple bathroom every day. So I think I was doing a lot more cleaning in the temple, and I was so happy cleaning the bathroom. So, you know, we changed a lot becoming devotees. We were lazy, but there was no... I never read any books until I got Bhagavad Gita, and I read it twice in 10 weeks. I wasn't interested, you know, so... And you may say, oh, I'm not intellectual, I don't read books, this and that. I didn't find any books that I thought were worth reading. And then when I got Prabhupada's books, he couldn't stop me. I'd go hide in closets. So no one would find me for seva, so I could read the books. Okay, we'll stop here, and we'll have more fun tomorrow, if you want. Tomorrow's going to be the most fun workshop, because it's about men and women. There's nothing more funny when you put a man and a woman together. It's like the funniest thing I've ever seen. Here's my philosophy. Man is nice, woman is nice, you put them together, it gets very interesting. Or as Some people would say, complicated. How's your relationship? It's complicated. Yeah, yeah, I know. It's always complicated. So we're going to talk about how to make it not complicated. And I studied, and my wife studied, we studied marriage counseling. So I can tell you some things that are time-tested and researched, just like this is how to make it work, and this is how not to make it work. And thousands of couples have proven this to be true. So that information is valuable. And we'll do that tomorrow at what time?
I will start at 11
At 11 till?
till 2 to 3.
Till we get hungry. 11 till we get hungry, which is 2 or 2:30 or 3,
Yeah.
something like that. So you're all invited. We can broadcast it also. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Grace Mahatma